Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Paper Rose Studio's Embroidery 6x6 paper collection. I personally don't do any embroidery or stitching, but I have friends and family that do, so I thought this would be a fun collection to use for cards for them, and also cards going to the residents at a local retirement home. There are 18 double-sided pattern papers, 3 each of 12 designs. Quite a few of the designs have cut-apart images and sentiments, and I did fussy cut the images from several of the sheets to use for my cards. This really is a beautiful collection. I love the colors and the look of texture on several of the designs. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I will be using some card sketches for inspiration. The first sketch is from MFT. It's number 626. And if you are interested in any of the card sketches I use in this video, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. For this first card, I selected 2 pattern papers, beautiful floral design for the narrow strip on the left side of the card, and a pattern paper with lots of small pink hearts. I layered both of them on a magenta colored cardstock. For a little bit of separation between the 2 patterns, I'm adding a narrow strip of teal colored cardstock, and I did put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back side to adhere that in place. For the narrow banner that's at the bottom of the card, I'm using the same magenta cardstock color. Before adhering it in place, I will put a scrap piece of cardstock on the very right and left side, and that'll help keep everything nice and level. Now I'll bring in several of the floral cut-aparts. I selected one of the smaller floral arrangements and also a couple of the leaf branches. I put foam dimension on the back of the floral piece. I'll adhere that one down first. Then I'll put a little bit of glue on the other 2 cut-apart pieces and tuck them in underneath that floral arrangement. For a sentiment, I've already stamped out Just For You, and this is from Paper Rose's Super Day Sentiment stamp set. It's a small stamp set, but it has some really useful general sentiments on it. I'll cut a fishtail on the left side, put glue on the back, and adhere it on the top portion of that magenta banner. The very right side of the sentiment strip will be tucked underneath the floral cut-apart piece. Using that same cardstock, I'll cut a small banner and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner. I'll first cut a fishtail on the bottom. Then on the right side, I'll cut it at a slight angle. I'll flip that piece over and do the same thing on the other side. So now I have this really fun-looking banner. And I'll adhere it in the upper right-hand corner using glue. Then to finish off the card, I'll add some of these really pretty glitter stickers. This is something I've had in my craft room forever, and I'm really trying to use it up this year. So there is my finished card, and I did end up making a total of 4. For 2 of the cards, I used different cut-apart images, but otherwise they're basically the same design. Now moving on to card design number 2. I selected this really light blue pattern paper. It has the look of texture, although it's nice and smooth. I used the hand stitching number 2 embossing folder to add a beautiful detail to the background. On the left side of the card, I'm adding a narrow strip of pattern paper that also has that fun texture look. And using a light pink pattern paper, I'll cut a small banner and adhere it in the upper left-hand corner. Before adhering the banner down, I am adding a small scrap piece of pattern paper, and I'll adhere that down first before attaching the banner. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. This card will be featuring the largest cut apart that's in the paper pad. This beautiful embroidery hoop along with this lovely floral design. Even with its large size, it does still fit on an A2 size card. I decided to pop it up using some thin foam dimension, and I have lots of it on the back since I want to make sure none of the areas sag. I'll adhere it to the center of the card, and I decided to put it at a slight angle. For a sentiment, this is another cut apart. It's the stitched word love and also a small heart. And I'll adhere those in the center of my embroidery hoop. To finish off the card, I'll add some small gem stickers. Put 2 in the upper left-hand corner and 3 in the lower right-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. It's a very simple card design, but with that large image, I didn't think it needed anything else. Now moving on to card design number 3. I selected another linen texture looking pattern paper for the background, this nice light cream color. I'll layer it on some teal colored cardstock, put my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next I'll add a stitch circle die cut. Try to find a light tan color that matched that linen texture. I'll adhere that in place using some glue. Now I'll bring in several of the floral cut apart pieces. I have foam dimension on the back of the 2 larger pieces. I'll adhere that largest piece in the lower right hand corner and the other one in the upper left hand corner. For the larger pink flower, I also have foam dimension on the back side, and I'll adhere it on top of the similar flower in that larger arrangement. And for the other small leaf pieces, I'll glue them down, tucking them underneath those larger floral cut aparts. The sentiment is one of the cut aparts. It's a stitched thank you. I'll cut the left side at an angle and glue it down next to that larger floral arrangement. Then to finish off the card, I'm adding some clear crystals from Paper Rose. I'll put 2 in the upper left-hand corner and 3 around the sentiment. And I am using an embellishment wand to pick those up, adding just a small drop of glue and pressing them in place. So there is my finished card, and again, I did make 2 using this design. This is one of my favorite cards. I love the light background and the pop of color from those beautiful floral pieces. For card design number 4, the card sketch is from MFT. This is number 198. I selected 2 pattern papers for the background, cut both of them at an angle following the design of the sketch. I'll layer both of those on some craft colored cardstock and then again on some blue cardstock. For that narrow strip that goes between the 2 pattern papers, I'm using that same blue color. I put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back side. I did cut that strip just a little bit longer than I needed. After adhering it down, I'll simply flip over the panel, use my scissors to trim off the extra. Then I'll layer that piece on the blue cardstock. I'll put some ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. Next, I'll add one of the embroidery hoop cut aparts. Thought that would work perfect for the circle element on the card sketch. I did put some foam dimension on the back side, but left a small gap in the center and only put a scrap piece of cardstock. And that's the area where it will go over that narrow blue cardstock strip in the background. I also cut out one of the larger flowers that matches the small flowers on that design, and I did pop it up using some foam dimension. I'll adhere that to the center of the embroidery hoop. Using the same blue cardstock, I'll cut a banner and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner. The sentiment is another cut apart, happy birthday, and I did cut the right side at an angle, and I'll adhere that in place in the lower right-hand corner. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding a couple of the crystals on the banner in the upper right-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and I did end up making a total of 4. Since I had already cut out those background pieces, I didn't want them to go to waste, so I made a similar card, and I also had 4 of the embroidery hoop cut apart pieces all ready to go. For card design number 5, the card sketch is from Sweet Sunday. This is number 211. The card sketch is designed for a square card, but I modified the measurements for an A2 size card. I have the heart paper for the background, adding a small piece of some pink linen texture looking pattern paper, and this is from the sheet that had the 4 different colors, so you can simply cut it in 4 and have 3 by 3 squares. I'll layer both of the pieces on some red cardstock, put some ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I selected a lighter pink pattern paper for the stitch circle, and I'll adhere that in place on the right side of the card. For the rectangle piece that'll feature all the floral cut-aparts, I used some white shimmer cardstock and I'm layering it on the same red colored cardstock. I think all of the times I've used this card sketch, I always added a large sentiment in that rectangular box, but this card it'll be featuring all the floral images. I have several different cut-apart pieces. One of my favorite flowers is this lovely pink flower. I selected 3 of them that are all the same size, put foam dimension on the back. I'll adhere all of those to the white panel. Then I'll add all the leaves and branches tucked behind the flowers. And I also have 2 smaller, similar pink flowers that I'll glue down instead of popping up. The hardest part about using this collection was trying to decide how many sheets of cut-aparts I would need. I wasn't planning on finishing off the entire paper pad. I was thinking maybe 10 cards, but I was having so much fun using this collection, I just kept going until almost the entire paper pad was gone. Now that I've added all those floral pieces, I'll cut a small banner from the same red cardstock and adhere it in the upper left-hand corner. For a sentiment, this is another cut-apart, Miss You Lots. I'll adhere that underneath that pink square on the right side. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The other card I used different cut-aparts and pattern paper, but overall it's still the same design. This is another favorite card of mine. Not sure which color I prefer. I think they're both beautiful. At this point in the video, I don't have a lot of pattern paper left. I basically have some 2-inch strips and a couple smaller pieces. For a card sketch, this is from Freshly Made Sketches. It's number 568. I thought this would be perfect for finishing up the rest of the pattern paper. Now on the card sketch, that larger panel is 2.5 inches wide. Well, the largest pieces I have are only 2 inches wide, but I knew I could still make it work. I'm also adding a 1/2 inch strip next to that 2-inch strip, and that'll help me use up more of the pattern paper. For the background of the card, I'm using some craft cardstock. I think that color works really nicely with this collection. I'll layer everything on some magenta colored cardstock, put some ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For the 3 squares, I do have the measurement listed at 1 1/4 of an inch, and then I added an additional 1/8 of an inch for those cardstock layers. And you can see once I lay them all down, there's not a lot of room between them, so it may be best to have the pattern paper squares 1 1/8 of an inch, and then that matted cardstock layer could be 1 1/4 inch. This is the first time I've tried this sketch, and sometimes I do go and modify the measurements after I've used it for the first time. I'm adding another large floral cut-apart piece, and I did pop it up using some foam dimension. At the very bottom, I also tucked in a small leafy branch. The sentiment is one of the cut-aparts, Happy Birthday. I'll cut the very right side at an angle, and before adhering it to the card, I will put some scrap cardstock on the very right side just to keep it nice and level. Then I'll adhere it in place using some glue. To finish off the card, I'll add some more of Paper Rose's clear crystals. Put 2 in the upper right-hand corner and 3 around the sentiment. I'll first add a small drop of glue, pick up the crystals using an embellishment wand, then press them in place. And right now you can see the white glue, but it will dry clear. I think I bought this package of clear crystals almost 2 years ago, and I still have tons left. I really like that there's the 4 different sizes included in the mix. So there is my finished card, and this time I made a total of 3. All of them have different pattern paper and cut-apart pieces. And here's a look at all the leftover pattern paper scraps. Just 5 small pieces, and I do still have quite a few of the cut-apart images and 2 sentiments. Since I wasn't sure how many sheets of cut-aparts I would be using, I think I did a pretty good job. I wasn't planning on finishing off the paper pad, so I didn't keep track of how much solid cardstock I used. I made a total of 17 cards using Paper Rose Studios Embroidery 6x6 paper collection. This is a beautiful collection full of fun cut-apart images and sentiments. And it's also available in the 12 by 12 size. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Paper Rose is located in Australia and they do ship internationally, but you can also purchase their products here in the US, and I have links for both locations in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.